My name is Sarah. I am 50 years old. I woke up this morning before the sun even started to rise, tied my long silver hair back into a tight ponytail, and walked barefoot into my home gym. I looked at my reflection in the large floor-to-ceiling mirror, feeling the cool morning air against my skin, and I smiled. I understood that my body is my greatest investment at 50. I have the elegant, firm musculature I have always worked so hard for, and my daily energy is absolutely boundless. But I have a very honest confession to make right now. It was not always like this. Not that long ago, I stood in front of this very same mirror, pulled on my absolute favorite pair of premium denim jeans, and felt a heavy sinking feeling in my chest. I turned to the side and my butt looked completely flat. It was sagging. I had those dreaded hip dips, and my jeans actually looked concave from the side. I felt so frustrated and betrayed by my own body because I was still staying highly active every single day. If you are also tired of watching your glutes lose their shape despite all your hard work, and you want to learn how I completely rebuilt my backside from the inside out, hit the subscribe button and leave a like. Let's get stronger together. Honestly, the level of frustration I felt back then was overwhelming. I am an American woman who deeply values high productivity, constant optimization, and staying entirely on top of my game in every aspect of my life. I have my beautiful home gym completely dialed in with matte black weights and resistance bands. I have my morning routine optimized down to the very last minute. I lift weights regularly. I stay active. I drink plenty of water to maintain thin, radiant skin. So, when I saw my backside deflating so noticeably, I immediately blamed my age. I told myself that hitting 50 just meant that gravity was finally going to win the battle. I assumed the fix was incredibly simple. I thought I just needed to do more squats. I believed I just needed to push myself harder, sweat more heavily, and power through the fatigue like I always do in business and in life. I added heavy barbell squats to my routine. I did hundreds upon hundreds of glute bridges on my yoga mat. I even ordered heavier kettlebells from my home gym just to push my limits. I would finish my morning workouts absolutely dripping in sweat, my thighs burning intensely, my lower back completely tight and sore, but absolutely nothing changed when I looked in the mirror. My glutes remained stubbornly flat, especially on the outer sides and the upper region where I wanted that elegant fullness. You know what surprised me most through all of this? It was not just an aesthetic issue that was bothering me. I started feeling a very deep and unsettling physical disconnect within my own body. My movements felt clumsy, and I felt like I was losing my foundation. Let me explain what was actually happening beneath the surface, because almost nobody tells us this reality. I had to dig deep into the modern science of longevity and active performance to finally uncover the truth. The problem was not that I was failing to work hard enough in my gym. The real problem was that my pelvis was completely out of proper position. You see, your glute muscles, and especially your gluteus medius, that crucial side muscle that is entirely responsible for giving your backside a full, rounded shape, simply cannot activate properly when your pelvic alignment is off. I realized with a shock that my highly productive corporate lifestyle was actually working against my physical health. I spend many hours sitting in my ergonomic office chair, leading virtual video meetings, managing my daily investments, typing on my laptop, and driving my car. All of that constant daily sitting had quietly, slowly, and predictably tilted my pelvis forward and rotated it slightly out of place. It completely shifted my structural foundation. And when your pelvis is tilted or rotated, which happens so easily as we age and sit more, it literally shuts off the neurological ability of your glute muscles to fire on command. I was completely stunned by this realization. No matter how many squats or heavy weighted bridges I did on my mat, that beautiful round shape was never going to come back because my brain was no longer sending the proper electrical signals to my glute muscles. This misalignment was so subtle that I did not even feel off balance during my day. But what it did was force other muscles, like my lower back and my front thighs, to take over all the heavy lifting during my workouts. That left my glutes completely underused, underdeveloped, and eventually switched entirely off. This is exactly why you can walk daily, strength train, and still notice that your butt looks incredibly flat. I vividly remember the exact afternoon I figured this out. I was sitting on my living room sofa, reading a 2019 study published in the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports Physical Therapy. It stated very clearly that pelvic alignment directly affects how our gluteal muscles recruit fibers, especially in people with an anterior pelvic tilt or a lateral asymmetry, which is a common shift to one side. The study proved that glute activation was significantly reduced even when performing standard heavy glute exercises. I felt like a massive light bulb went off in my head. My body was simply defaulting to compensations. I found another study published by the American Council on Exercise that hit me even harder. It emphasized that muscles can only strengthen effectively when your joints are in optimal alignment. Otherwise, you are just training the wrong muscles and reinforcing bad movement patterns for years. With age, especially for women after menopause, we tend to sit more, move a bit less, and unconsciously shift our daily posture. My glutes had not only shrunk, they had completely disconnected from my daily movement. I knew exactly what I needed to do. Before I could ever hope to build my glutes back up, I had to completely reconnect them. I had to restore my pelvic control and reawaken those dormant neural signals that tell the muscles to actually fire. I decided right then to strip away all the heavy weights and complex routines from my mornings. I started my recovery with a movement that completely changed the trajectory of my physical longevity. It is not a heavy strength move. It is a brilliant retraining movement designed to align your pelvis and lay the perfect foundation for glutes that actually work. I call it the wall hinge with a lateral shift. You have probably been told that to fix a flat butt, you just need to squeeze your glutes really hard. But if your pelvis is out of position, they will not activate no matter how hard you squeeze them. The very first time I tried this, I walked over to a blank, smooth wall in my home gym. I stood exactly 6 to 8 inches in front of the wall, facing away from it. I placed my feet shoulder-width apart. I purposefully turned my toes slightly inward, which I learned helps to naturally open up the back of the hips. I kept my knees soft and slightly bent, making sure they were not locked aggressively. I let my arms relax by my sides, and then I placed my hands gently on my hips so I could physically feel my body moving. I took a deep, calming breath and began a standard hip hinge. I pushed my hips back slowly and deliberately until my butt gently tapped the drywall behind me. My torso leaned slightly forward naturally, but I focused hard on keeping my spine very long and straight, protecting my posture. Up to this point, it just felt like a stretch, but then came the crucial part. While holding that exact hinged position, I shifted my hips just slightly to the left. Instantly, I felt it. I felt my right glute start to powerfully engage. It was not a painful burn. It was a deep, awakening sensation. It felt like a light switch had finally been flipped on inside my hip. I shifted my hips slowly back to the center. Then I shifted slightly to the right side. Immediately, I felt my left glute activate and tighten right under my fingers. I returned to the center one more time, and then I slowly, with total control, stood back up to a tall standing position. That was exactly 1 repetition. I stood there in my gym, absolutely amazed by the physical sensation. For the first time in such a long time, I actually felt my side glutes working without my lower back screaming in pain. I aimed for 8 to 10 slow, highly controlled repetitions. I took a brief rest, letting my breathing settle, and then I completed a second set. I had to constantly remind myself to think of the movement like gently rocking my pelvis side to side, not forcefully twisting my torso. I kept my weight perfectly balanced in both of my feet. I moved slowly because I knew this was about absolute precision, not speed or rushing. I realized that this simple retraining drill was completely recentering my pelvis over my base of support. It was teaching my core and my glutes to finally work together again. It was waking up all those underused stabilizer muscles, including the deep rotators and my obliques. I read a 2021 study in physical therapy and sport that found that low-load, closed-chain pelvic repositioning drills like this one actually improve gluteal symmetry and recruitment in older adults after just 2 short weeks. And they were completely right. This was not about feeling an exhausted muscle burn. It was about reconnecting my brain's movement map so the right muscles could fire when I needed them most. Our pelvis becomes much less mobile and more tilted as we age and sit at our desks. This drill unlocked my entire lower body system. It got my hips firmly back under my center of gravity and reminded my glute muscles exactly what their job was. I felt the difference immediately. It was the clear difference between training my body in the perfect position versus wasting my precious morning time reinforcing poor, aging posture. Once I felt that my pelvis was fully centered and my glutes were firing predictably again, I knew I was finally ready to move on to a more dynamic, strength-building movement. I needed to build shape, fullness, and control, especially in that gluteus medius muscle that makes the butt look beautifully rounded and elegant. That is exactly where the second movement of my routine comes in. I call it the wall-facing squat with a calf raise. This is not a traditional heavy gym squat. This is an advanced posture-correcting, glute-shaping, and balance-building movement that works entirely in harmony with your natural biomechanics. Let me tell you exactly how I performed it and how the sweat and effort felt. I turned around and stood facing the blank wall in my gym. I positioned myself about 6 to 8 inches away from the wall. I placed my feet slightly wider than my hips and angled my toes outward just about 10 to 15 degrees. I lifted my arms and placed both of my hands very lightly on the wall at shoulder height, just for a touch of support. I took a sharp breath in, braced my core tightly, and began to lower my body into a squat. Because I was facing the wall directly, the wall literally forced me to maintain a very tall, elegant spine. If I let my chest collapse forward even an inch, my face would bump into the wall. It was the perfect automatic correction. I kept my chest proudly up and made sure my knees were tracking perfectly over my toes, completely stopping them from caving inward. As I lowered myself, I felt an intense, beautiful stretch and load placed directly on my posterior chain, completely targeting my glutes and my calves. I went down only as low as felt comfortable for my joints, keeping my thighs at about a 45 to 60 degree angle. I did not force myself to go fully parallel to the floor. But here is the part that changed my body completely. At the very bottom of that squat position, while my glute muscles were fully holding my body weight, I rose up onto my toes. I lifted both of my heels high off the floor, engaging my calves deeply. The physical demand of this was incredible. I held that top heel raise position for 1 to 2 full seconds. My balance was deeply challenged. My core tightened involuntarily to keep me entirely stable. The sides of my hips burned with a clean, productive heat. I slowly lowered my heels back down to the floor, and then I pressed powerfully through my feet to return to a full standing position. I could feel the blood rushing through my legs, leaving my skin flushed and radiant. I performed 10 to 12 perfectly controlled repetitions. I rested for a moment, sipping my water, and then repeated the entire sequence for 2 to 3 sets. The key for me was to stay very tall and move incredibly slowly. I learned that control matters so much more than the depth of the squat or the speed of the repetition. This single movement built real-world, highly functional leg strength for me. It gave me the power I needed for walking confidently, standing up smoothly from my desk, and stabilizing my body. It taught my brain to fire my muscles in the exact right sequence, glutes first, then everything else. It completely addressed the root cause of my hip dips by directly challenging the side of my hips. I started doing this movement immediately after the wall hinge shift. Together, these two movements formed a completely perfect system for my morning routine. They restored my alignment, rebuilt my strength and shape, and strongly reinforced my physical balance. And the best part was that I did not need any heavy weights, complex machines, or an expensive gym to achieve this. I did it right in the peace of my own home, taking full control of my aging process. I realized the absolute truth that no one ever told us when we were younger. You do not just naturally lose your glutes simply because you turn 50. You lose them because your body quietly, slowly, and predictably adapts to daily inactivity and constant pelvic misalignment. But now I know so much better, and my body reflects that deep knowledge. I learned that fixing a flat backside is never about doing hundreds of endless repetitions or desperately chasing muscle soreness. It all starts with fully reclaiming your structural foundation. It starts with your pelvis, your daily posture, and your critical mind-muscle connection. Once I put that vital connection back in place, absolutely everything in my life changed. My daily movements feel infinitely smoother now. My standing posture feels incredibly strong and commanding. And yes, when I put on those premium denim jeans now, my backside looks fuller, rounder, and so much more alive again. But looking past the mirror and the aesthetic beauty of it all, what I was truly building in my home gym was total physical freedom. I built the freedom to move through my busy, productive days entirely without pain. I built the freedom to walk briskly, lift my groceries, climb the stairs of my home, and catch myself instantly if my balance is ever lost. I finally built the freedom to completely trust my own body again. You really do not need a fancy gym membership to feel this way. You just need deep intention, strict consistency, and a true willingness to start small and fix the root of the problem. If you have been feeling frustrated with a flat or sagging body, even if you feel like you have already tried every workout out there, please take my personal story as your ultimate reminder. It is absolutely not too late for you, and it is entirely not your fault. You just had not been shown the proper biomechanical path until right now. You have the power to invest in your physical capital and completely rewrite how you age. Our bodies are the brilliant vessels that carry us through our entire lives. Keeping this vessel beautifully strong, perfectly aligned, and deeply powerful is the absolute greatest gift we can give to our future selves. I am so passionate about this because I refuse to accept the tired narratives about getting older, and I want you to refuse them too. I would love to hear directly from you now. Which of these two functional movements are you most curious to try in your own home gym or living room? Or maybe you have already felt the incredible impact of changing your own pelvic alignment. If so, tell us exactly what changed for you. Drop a comment below with your first name, your age, and the beautiful city or state where you are watching from. Let us actively build a highly supportive, intelligent, and fiercely strong community of people over 50 who absolutely refuse to settle for physical decline. And finally, to show me that you are with me on this journey, I want you to type this exact phrase in the comments. I am strong. Leave that in the comments below. Let's conquer this together.